Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn, and I want to continue to talk to you about what will we do in heaven. What will we do in heaven? Yesterday we kind of looked at how it's not going to be a place of boredom, like we kind of stereotype. We looked at Revelation chapter 22, verses 1 through 5, that describes some of the things that we will see in heaven. And we looked at the first thing that we will know is that we're going to have glorified bodies. So if you missed yesterday's 14-minute program, really want to encourage you to go to our website, hopeisheretoday.org. Hopeisheretoday.org. Check that 14-minute program out, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on all the major platforms. Also want to remind you we have a YouTube channel. Most of our programs are on there. You can find us on YouTube at simply Hope is Here, and my name, Greg Horn, H-O-R-N. But yesterday we kind of wrapped it up as we looked about our glorified bodies, and I joked about how I was hoping that I would look like this really good friend of mine for the past 16 years, Tom Bohannon, and yet, kidded that, that's not what we're going to look like in heaven, but we'll be the best version of ourselves. And I shared about this recently in a sermon at Gardenside Christian Church, where I'm fortunate to be the pastor there. And I said, I want to look like this when I get my glorified body in heaven. And I showed a picture of me when I was like 21, worked out all the time, and was in great shape. And I was at the beach and just had a bathing suit on. And back then in the late 80s, they were short bathing suits, and that was normal back then. Now people would be making fun of me, but I had a six-pack. My stomach, I took great care of myself, and it's like, man, I want my body to look like that. Then I showed my senior picture in high school, or I had a full set of hair, and I want to look like that. And I don't know what our best version will be ourselves, but if I'm in charge, that's what I want to look like. So it'll be great to see. But you say, well, what do you base it on, Greg? Well, I want you to think about Jesus after his resurrection. He walked and he talked. He ate with his disciples. He was recognized and he was seen by over 500 people. And yet he was no longer limited by the brokenness of this world. His resurrected body, friends, I think is our preview for what heaven will be like with our bodies. Think about it this way. You upgrade from an old, worn-out car to a brand new one. Same driver, but a completely different experience. No breakdowns, no strange noises, no fear of it failing. Now multiply that infinitely. Your resurrected body, friends, won't hold you back. It will finally allow you to fully live. No more chronic pain, no more fatigue, no more limitations, and no more disease. Imagine doing everything you love without ever feeling tired or frustrated. Friends, that's the body heaven gives you. And that alone tells us something important. God didn't design eternity for inactivity. He designed it for living. The second thing I think we can learn about heaven from the Bible in Revelation chapter 22 is that we will serve and we will reign. I love that song called Reign Above It All. And, obviously it's talking about God and Jesus, but man, we're going to be reigning up in heaven with God and Jesus. It says in Revelation chapter 22, verses 3 and 5, his servants will serve him and they will reign forever and ever. Two key words there, friends. The word serve and the word reign, R-E-I-G-E-N. Okay? That means heaven includes us having purpose and responsibility. And this may surprise some of you. We often think of work as part of the curse. But friends, I want to remind you, work existed before sin happened. In the Garden of Eden, Adam was given responsibility to cultivate, to name, and to steward creation. Work isn't the curse, friends. Frustration is the curse. Jesus said, my Father is always working, and so am I. Friends, remind you that in heaven, work returns what it was always meant to be: meaningful, joyful, fulfilling. And Jesus gives us a hint of this in Luke chapter 19, verse 17, when he says, well done, because you have been faithful in very little, you shall have authority over 10 cities. That's not symbolic language for doing nothing. That's responsibility. Pastor Robert Jeffress says, heaven will not be boring or inactive. It will be a place of purposeful service and unimaginable joy. I want you to let that sink in for a second. You will have meaningful things to do in heaven. Not busy work, not stress-filled deadlines, but purposeful engagement in God's perfect kingdom. Think about the difference between two kinds of work. One job drains you and you watch the clock. You feel unappreciated and you can't wait to leave. Another kind of work energizes you. You lose track of time. You feel alive while doing it. Heaven is filled with that second kind. Work that fits who you are, work that matters, and work that brings joy. And not only will we serve, we will reign. Friends, that means influence, responsibility, and participation in God's rule. Friends, I got to remind you that what we do today, what we do right now in this season of life, it matters. Faithfulness here becomes responsibility there in heaven one day. And I got to remind you that this life is preparation for the next. We'll say that again. I want to remind you that this life, okay, on this side of heaven, it's preparation for the next one in heaven. Really got to value the decisions we make. And, you know, we're going to be accountable for all that we do. And it's not to put pressure on you, friends. You know me better than that. But it is to say, hey, I may need to evaluate where I'm spending my time, my money, you know, the resources God's entrusted me with. Because we will be accountable, friends, for every thought, every word. A third thing about heaven, we will experience unbroken joy. We will experience unbroken joy. Isaiah paints a picture of the coming reality in Isaiah chapter 65. There'll be no weeping, no distress, no conflict, and no decay. Everything that is broken, it will be restored. Everything sad, it will be undone. Randy Alcorn, in his book called Heaven, said, joy is a serious business of heaven. Say that again. Joy is the serious business of heaven. Friends, that's a powerful phrase because we often treat joy as optional, occasional, or fragile. But in heaven, joy is going to be constant and it's going to be complete. And it's going to flow. The joy is going to flow from three primary sources. Number one, we're going to have joy in worship. Friends, we're going to see God clearly, not by faith, but by sight. Revelation says they will see his face. Friends, that alone is enough to fill eternity with awe. Secondly, in heaven, we're going to have joy in relationships. Oh my goodness, friends, how beautiful that be. There'll be no misunderstanding, no conflict, and no broken trust. Every relationship will be whole, deep, and pure. Imagine being fully known and fully loved and without fear. Oh, friends, that's so powerful. I'm going to say it again. Can you imagine when we're in heaven, we're going to be fully known and fully loved and without fear. A third thing we're going to have in heaven, friends, is we're going to have joy in discovery and creativity. Friends, heaven is not static, it is alive. We will explore God's creation, develop ideas, create, build, learn, and grow. Because an infinite God cannot be fully explored in a finite moment. Think about it this way, friends. Think about a moment when you're completely happy, when you were completely happy. Maybe it was at a family gathering, a meaningful conversation with someone, or just a moment of beauty or laughter. Now, I want you to imagine that moment without interruption, without anxiety, or without the fear of that moment ending. And then imagine it expanding forever. That's the joy of heaven. So if that is what heaven is like, got to ask you a question. How should we live now? Let me suggest three things to you, friends. Number one, faithfulness now affects eternity. Jesus made it clear what we do with what we've been given. It really matters. Our obedience, our integrity, our service, friends, it all carries forward. One of the best things about being the pastor of Gardenside Christian Church, we've got several people that they have retired, but they still want to, from their jobs, okay? They're paying jobs, but they still want to be active. They want to make a difference with their one and only lives. Think about Lori Love. She retired, and I think about a year ago, and she had been serving. We go to Lighthouse Ministries twice a month and serve. And as we were trying to grow that ministry, I just went to her and said, hey, would you kind of be like the team captain for getting the volunteers plugged in and getting that assembled and getting everybody on the same page? And she said, sure, I'll do that. And she's doing a great job. We do it once on Saturday morning, one Saturday morning a month, and then one Tuesday night a month. And, it's tough getting volunteers, make sure everybody's there and committed. It's kind of like herding cats sometimes, okay? But she's done a great job with it. And so even though she's retired from her paying job, she's like, I still want to make a difference with my one and only life and serve Jesus. And that's a beautiful thing. Her faithfulness, I believe when she gets to heaven, that God's going to say, hey, Lori, I saw what you did down there in Lexington, helping at Lighthouse, helping serve a cup of water or warm coffee or a hot meal to those that are less fortunate than you, and many of my sons and daughters that are homeless. And I just want to say thank you for giving to the Lord. Second thing, friends, I want to remind you that your talents are a rehearsal for heaven. The things God has placed in you, your gifts, your passions, abilities, they are not random. They are preparation. God is shaping you now for what you're going to do in heaven one day. The third thing, friends, I want to remind you, what you love most reveals what you're living for. If all your affection is tied to this world, then honestly, heaven's going to feel distant. But if your hearts are anchored in God, heaven becomes your greatest anticipation. So what will we do in heaven, friends? We will live. We will serve. We will reign. We will worship. We will experience joy beyond anything we've ever known. Friends, heaven is not less than this life. It is everything this life was meant to be. Say that again. Heaven is not less than this life. It is everything that this life was meant to be. So friends, that leads me to one final question today. If heaven includes responsibility and reward, how are you preparing today? Ouch. Say that again. If heaven includes responsibility and reward, how are you preparing for it today? I want to ask you 3 questions as we wrap up today's program. Are you living for what lasts? Are you being faithful with what God has given you? And last but not least, are you walking with the one who is preparing that place in heaven, Jesus? Friends, I hope you'll ponder those 3 questions. Are you living for what lasts? Are you being faithful with what God has given you? I want to remind you, friends, you cannot outgive God. And are you walking with the one who is preparing that place? Are you inviting Jesus to be a part of every area of your life, friends? Because here's what I know, friends. The greatest reality of heaven is not what we will do. It's who we will be with. And Jesus is inviting us even now to be with him. If you've been blessed by this program, I hope you'll share it with someone else. Thanks for listening or watching on our YouTube channel. My name's Greg Horn, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow on Hope is Here.